if you know you have a lot of background noise, just mute yourself, because I can mute you too, but then you can unmute yourself anytime you want to talk. And you don't have to wait for me. So the first thing, before we dive into the content of tonight, I want to just check in to see if anybody has any questions left from last week's lesson, where we touched on what and why might there be a payoff to staying stuck, to not having what we want, to perpetuating a condition in our life that we've really been struggling to get rid of. And this is really an important lesson, and it's one that from time to time we revisit, because it really is at the heart of why a lot of simple law of attraction techniques don't always work as predictably as planned. And I want you all to have whatever time you need to get help with this if you need it. Did anybody have anything come up as you worked with some of that material? Questions, comments, sharing, anything at all?
Hi, Lynn. It's Candace. I'll share.
Yeah.
So I was dealing with feeling like with being an entrepreneur, and with the idea of being more visible in the world was kind of scaring me. I was realizing that I was needing to put myself out and let people see me more. And so, because I had this belief that I just need to do everything by myself. So I kind of made a stretch to reach out every day to somebody new. And it's been really amazing. People have been really responding. I've been talking to directors of different agencies and offering to buy them lunch and talk to them about how to run an agency. And but it's scary and good at the same time. So for me, it's been building a new strength and growing into something, and also allowing myself to be more visible were the two things that I got out of this week's lesson.
Yeah, that's fabulous, and I think that's such a great example, because invariably moving beyond where we may have felt stuck requires coming out of our comfort zone, and I think you just gave such a great illustration of doing that so well. I mean, I really understand the discomfort.
And the other thing is receiving from others. Letting other people give something to me, that was the other thing, like receiving, and so asking for what I want and then getting it, which is like, wow, it actually works.
Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, sharing, comments, anything? No, you're good for now? Well, all right. Be sure that if you do have questions, you make a point to get them addressed, because this is your time, and just be sure you really use it to the full advantage. I'm gonna mute everybody now. And those of you who are on the phone, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. And we'll get recording started. So we're in the first week of April at this point. And, as I've touched upon before in recent weeks, this season of coursework introduces many of the important elements of empowerment. Really the difference between spiritual growth and true spiritual mastery, I think, lies in the cultivation of personality along with spirit. While we may succeed in opening our spiritual faculties through any number of practices, when we give equal attention to finding our personality at the same time, we really start to see this powerful transformation in our whole quality of life, not just in our spiritual experience. For example, someone can become better and better at opening their psychic sensitivities, for example, or better and better at meditation, but they might not see improvement in certain areas of life that have always been kind of stuck, like finding the perfect job or maintaining a relationship or just being happy, some of those basic things. And what's more, when we do really work with our personality along with our spiritual faculties, we really grow tremendously in our ability to serve the world around us. Kind of a seasonally apt metaphor for this is to imagine the personality as soil in which our spiritual aspirations grow. And we can all grow a little houseplant that will bring us moments of satisfaction now and then, and we give it a lot of tender loving care, or we can grow a big outdoor crop of something that becomes a fulfilling life work and supports us in this abundant way and may help feed the world around us as well. That's the difference in qualitative experience that we're talking about here. So in March, we delved into the power of thought and words and intention and self-responsibility. In April, which is a month that's all about quickening growth and increasing light and rising energy, we're going to give attention to the more spontaneous, emotional, and intuitive sides of our being. And this week, we'll give attention to the spring energy of quickening by cultivating and maybe rekindling, if necessary, our passion for life. Passion is very important. Passionate zest for life really is what gives us the motivation to make our dreams reality. And it just has a remarkable healing power. It can dispel, deadening depression, and heal our bodies. And what's more, it's an important link to our inner guidance and intuition, as I'll touch upon later. However, when our whole lifestyle has us doing too many things that we don't love, that's when passion can really fizzle, and it can just seem really out of reach. We all have the occasional chore of life that doesn't particularly make us jump for joy. But passion really makes the difference between us not particularly minding these chores versus having to push ourselves through painful, endless drudgery. For example, I'm very passionate about teaching and working with groups, and while I don't particularly enjoy writing all the descriptive advertising copy, for every workshop I do, or even for keeping my mailing list updated or various, other administrative chores that I have to do, I have the energy for these things because they're part of doing what I love. But if I were to take an administrative job that consisted of only these things, I'd really have to force myself to go to work every day, and I just get depressed in no time at all. When we believe we have no options other than joyless activities, we wind up getting depressed, and we wind up getting kind of numb. And this is often when we turn to addictions just to cope with the lack of natural joy in our lives. Addictions really are a substitute for natural joy. And when we get too far away from living our passion, that's when crisis or illness, it has a way of intervening and forcing us to change. I've heard an awful lot of people who've dealt with really serious health crises say that their illness actually gave them permission to make positive changes, changing their priorities, changing their life direction in ways that they wouldn't have considered otherwise. And sometimes I ask people in my workshops what they would do if suddenly they were diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. And it's amazing to me how often people will just quickly, almost instantly come up with a whole plan of major life changes. Like they had that in the back of their mind, forever. They just know exactly what they'd do. Maybe they'd leave, an empty relationship or a spirit-deadening job, or maybe they'd take time for projects or self-care that has been back-burnered forever and ever. Or maybe they'd spend more time with family and loved ones. These things clearly were already in their mind, but somehow seemed impossible amid all the obligations and, some of the safer choices of life. And when an illness does strike, usually we start with the question, okay, how can I get well? Yet if we maybe redefine illness as an opportunity to change, I think a more useful line of questioning might be, what do I want to get well for? Why do I want to get well? What's there for me when I'm well? And, we don't have to reach a crisis point. We don't have to get sick to come back to passion. And although it might mean making some difficult decisions, it might even mean making some major life changes, it really can be the best health care we ever give ourselves. Now, just as the lack of passion can make us sick, the presence of it can be a tremendous healer. Healing really does speed up when we find our passion and purpose for living, and when we begin to embrace the joy in each moment. I knew a man many years ago who was a great illustration of this. He had many, many strokes. He was at death's door. I may have even told you this story already. Everybody believed he was going to die soon. However, when he was in the hospital, for what everybody thought was the last time, he really felt God talking to him, telling him that he still had work to do. And he went on to recover, and following the guidance he received, he started a nonprofit organization that found employment for hundreds of people who were considered unemployable. And he lived many more years in spite of, some off and on continuing struggles with his health. His just new passion and purpose for life just really breathed this new health into his body. So, when our inner spark feels low, where do we start? Where do we start the process back to passion? I think first we need to simply start listening to our wants and our desires. Consider, for example, scheduling a block of time, even just a little time, to do exactly what you want to do. And this, in fact, is going to be one of our exercises this week that I'll explain in a bit. Now, for any of us who have a long-standing habit of doing what we should, and we have a very structured life, a lot of shoulds in there, and we don't have a lot of experience doing what we want, we might fear that if we really indulged in what we want, we'd just curl up on the couch with a book and never get up, or we'd start puttering in the garden and we'd never stop, or we'd eat ice cream till we explode. Whatever it is, we consider indulgent. And, when we first do give in to what we most want to do in the moment, we may indeed just spend a lot of time in the couch or working in the garden or going for long walks or whatever else feels like heaven that we don't allow ourselves to experience fully. Eventually, though, through some guilt-free indulging, our desires ultimately lead us in a new direction, in a positive direction. Going for long walks might bring some creative inspiration that solves an important problem. The endless gardening might lead us to start a new landscaping business, or just sitting on the couch might leave us rested enough to finally start the diet and exercise program we've been intending to do someday. It's funny, I even saw a dedicated junk food junkie develop a craving for salad when she was doing a workshop with me. This was a 5-day workshop on eating and body image and self-love, all those kinds of things. Good. So, and she was, what I was sharing is a story about someone who, when she just was encouraged to follow all her appetites, she was a junk food junkie, had about 3 days worth of junk food, and then, without the struggle of trying to, resist all her cravings, to her own amazement, she was about to head to the fast food drive-in, but she found herself craving salad. She had to go find a salad bar and get herself a salad. And she found herself enjoying vegetables for the first time in her conscious memory. Now, on the other hand, if you're thinking, okay, this doesn't work for me, I was too depressed to get off the couch all last weekend, and I gave in to all my junk food appetites, but I don't feel a bit inspired. That's because simply avoiding doing what we should is not at all the same as intentionally pursuing what we love. Doing the opposite of what we should, the whole while berating ourselves for the guilty indulgence, it really doesn't give a lot of pleasure. And it doesn't have much renewing benefit. It really only affirms our losing battle with self-discipline. It leaves us feeling out of control and, just not very good about ourselves. So creating guilt-free, I'll say that again, guilt-free room in your life to carefully listen to your wants and acting on them in a way that's intentional and conscious and healthy, really makes this into a much different kind of exercise. The exercise I'm going to suggest is really about having a creative adventure rather than just surrendering to addictions or depressive inertia. Because the more we're able to discern the little inclinations that make us want to do one thing more than another, and the more we follow these, the less likely they are to become out of control overcompensations for past restrictions. As in, oh my gosh, I haven't had a quiet moment to myself in weeks, so now all I want to do is stare at the TV for 10 hours straight, binge watching the latest Netflix, offering. And, what's more, these urgings really do begin to connect us with our inner guidance, that quiet voice that shows us the path of our true purpose and highest good. And then suddenly options appear showing alternatives to circumstances that once seemed hopefully limited. The inner struggle with self-discipline diminishes as what we want and what's good for us start to become the same thing. Like when the junk food junkie really starts to crave salad. Those things start to become the same thing. And we find the motivation and the passion and the drive to do all kinds of positive, productive things that self-discipline alone could never accomplish. Now, please note this is not meant as an encouragement for all-out binging in your favorite addictions. Addictions, be they in the form of substances or activities or whatever, we can be addicted to so many things. Addictions are always about becoming unconscious. the first few moments of engaging in addiction behavior may be deeply pleasurable, but then the habit kicks in and we're on autopilot. So, by the time we get to the bottom of the cookie bag or to the last beer or to the third hour of TV viewing, we're not really registering pleasure anymore. We've just zoned out. And we'll talk a little bit more about addiction specifically in this season, actually. But discerning and following our desires is all about becoming more conscious rather than less. It's about savoring each moment and moving on when the pleasure of the moment wanes. Now the exercises, there's a bunch of different exercises this week, and they're multiple choice. And they're all variations on the theme of taking time in some way to do what you want. To follow passion. Now, in this first exercise, you're to identify something important to you, something that feels really important that you haven't made time for, and find some way to give it time and attention very first thing upon awakening every morning, and to do this for a week, religiously for a week. And you can do it longer if it's working for you, but it's really about not missing a day for 7 days straight. So what you would do for this exercise, is figure out what it is that's important to you, and you change your usual wake-up routine in whatever way you need to, so you can do this before you do anything else. And, save a few minutes to run to the bathroom and grab yourself a cup of something. And then you do it. Then you do whatever it is that you haven't been making time for. It might mean sitting down at your computer and working on the marketing plan for your home-based business, or starting the novel you always wanted to write. It might mean taking time to prepare healthy food to eat later so you're not tempted by whatever is quick and easy when you're too tired and hungry to bother. It might mean devoting time to prayer or meditation or physical exercise before the activities of the day distract you. And now you don't even need to spend a lot of time at this. It could be a half an hour. It could even be 5 minutes. If you do this every day, it can have a powerful effect. Just the routine of sitting down very first thing, even if you're giving it only 5 minutes attention, it will start some momentum. It's a really interesting exercise that way. Now the second exercise is very different. It involves setting aside a whole day, or at least 6 hours, a chunk of 6 hours at least, when you have nothing scheduled. And this exercise involves making no plans at all for this time. And at the beginning of the time, you would just ask yourself, what is it that you most want to do right now? And you just do nothing until you get an inclination toward a particular activity or non-activity. It might be you just feel like sitting in the garden with a cup of tea and a book, and you do that. And you do that until suddenly you're feeling like, oh, I'm kind of done here. Then you check in again, and you see, what do I feel like doing now? Then you might want to just get in your car and drive somewhere, drive to the country, or just see where you wind up. And you do that until, again, it's not feeling like it's fulfilling you anymore. And you just keep, really the whole day is about listening to what are you wanting to do right now? What's the inclination right now? And without judging any activity as better or worse than any other, it's about really staying in the moment and releasing all temptations to create an agenda and a plan So it's not about saying, okay, first I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, because I've been wanting to do all these things for so long, so I'm going to pack them into a day. No, it's not about that at all. It's about giving yourself an adventure and spontaneity. And you don't decide what you're going to do next until you're ready to stop doing what you're doing. So again, the exercise is a lot more about listening than doing. And it's a really good one for helping to awaken and strengthen your inner guidance. Now, the idea of the exercises this week being multiple choice, and there's still more I haven't gotten to yet, are to let yourself be drawn to whichever ones just feel right to you. And the instructions around all these exercises are to pick one as your exercise for the week. And you can do more than one if you feel called, but be mindful to do only what you feel a spark around. And it's better to fully commit to just one exercise than to do more than one halfway. So only take on what you feel really committed to doing wholeheartedly. Now, with these first two exercises that I just described, one is to wake up in the morning and give at least 5 minutes of attention to whatever it is you've been putting off. You know, you'd pick that one project, whether it's taking better care of your health or starting a writing project or doing yoga. You'd pick one project and you'd give it a little bit of time every morning first thing. The other one is to take a chunk of time, preferably a whole day, and make it your adventure in spontaneity and of listening to your inclinations in the moment. Now, my suggestion is that if you tend to have your every waking moment scheduled, and it's really hard to even imagine giving yourself an unstructured block of time, then that's the exercise you most need. That will be the exercise for you. You'll get the most out of it. Now, if you tend to be more prone to inertia and procrastination, then consider doing the first exercise where you give a little bit of attention to something first thing in the morning. Now, the next two exercises are for anyone who's seriously struggling with inertia these days and feels like you might need some extra help with motivation. And these next two exercises are what I think of as intensive care exercises for jump-starting your passion for life. So if there, if you have a whole list of things in your life you wish you were doing, you're working toward, but you lack motivation, you wish you had more discipline, it's important to understand that discipline alone, it doesn't take us very far without passion behind it, not us. And there's a process that leads to this lack of passion. It begins when we live for the future. We put our happiness off until later. And then we wind up settling for a present that isn't very satisfying. And we wind up having a lot of emptiness to cope with and to fill somehow. And we try to fill that void through addictions and by repressing our feelings of discontent. And then the more we numb ourselves, the less we're able to hear the intuitive guidance that leads us to our path of fulfillment and purpose and happiness, true happiness, not the substitute for happiness that we get from addictions. And the more we deny our desires and passions because we think they don't fit with our future-focused goals, then the more unhealthy and out of balance our desires become, and the more we need to control them, because that's when we're trying to fill the void of our own emptiness with something that isn't really going to fill it. It turns into some kind of addictive behavior. And we set up a lifestyle where we're routinely doing something other than what we really want to do. We're repressing our desires and consequently coping with stress and unhappiness often through addictions. This ultimately results in inertia. Sometimes it goes into depression. It can even turn into illnesses. And inertia is always there for a reason. Sometimes it's just because our effort has gotten off track somehow, and what we're doing is no longer in alignment with our highest good, but we haven't changed our path. Sometimes inertia is telling us we need a break in activity so that we can dream and regroup and become re-inspired. We talked a lot about that in the winter season. We need those void phases. Sometimes inertia is there to protect us from going forward when some less conscious part of us believes that our desired goal is unsafe somehow or not in our best interest. For example, this is kind of an extreme example, but in the early 1980s, I worked quite a bit with people dealing with physical illnesses, and I met and was mentoring for a bit a therapist who specialized in teaching cancer patients how to visualize their disease away. This was a very new idea back then. It was cutting edge therapy. And the therapist shared with me that she was incredibly frustrated because so few of her clients were motivated to continue their healing programs. They'd drop out. They wouldn't be very compliant. And she couldn't understand why they wouldn't do a few simple exercises to save their life. Yet what she was perceiving to be a foolish lack of discipline on their part, I saw to be more likely kind of an unconscious instinct, like an instinctive part of them knew not to let go of their disease too quickly. Because, as we addressed last week, the gains that come from illness or other life crises can be so profound. They can be vitally important to our well-being, so much so that we unconsciously choose them, even over healing the disease. Sometimes the gains of being able to put ourselves first or to step back from just spirit-deadening work or tasks or patterns and relationships, that can be more important to our spirit than just making the disease go away. So in this way, in this kind of instance, inertia comes up not as a weakness or as a lack of discipline, but because that instinctive part of us knows that we need the hidden gains of staying where we are. And just as giving too much energy to what we feel we should do and not enough to what we want to do is a sure path to inertia, the only path back to passion really is following our heart's desire. Because anything else is just going to lead us back to stuckness. And many people just feel this is impossible to do. They can identify all the things they must do, they really have to do. They simply can't abandon doing all these chores of life in order to do what they want to do and what they love to do. Yet in the end, the part of us that just doesn't want to often has a way of winning out in spite of our best efforts. Once upon a time, years and years ago, there was a woman in my weekly group who just was looking really drained and depleted week after week. She'd been battling a flu, for weeks and weeks and weeks. She just couldn't shake it. And she talked a little bit about other things going on in her life, and she described feeling torn. She really wanted to support her husband by supporting his business and working with him, but she felt no affinity for it. But what she really longed to do was to stay home and take care of their 5 children and be a part-time midwife. And as she talked about wanting to help her husband in his business, you could just see her whole face becoming noticeably tense, and she sounded guilty and her shoulders kind of slumped and she looked really unhappy. And it was so clear that her heart wasn't in it. And as she talked about taking care of her home and her family, you could just see her face soften, and she sounded relaxed and happy and was smiling. And by forcing herself to do what she thought was the right thing, to work in her husband's business, she just became so physically depleted that she made herself useless to everyone. You know, her illness forced her to stay at home a lot of days, but not in a way that was really beneficial to her or her family or to anyone. So if you're one of those folks who's having serious issues with inertia, you know, if you're feeling really stuck, here's a couple of exercises. These are, again, intensive care exercises. And I'm going to go through them kind of quickly here. We're going to end with a meditation tonight, but I'll go through them quickly here. And then you can work on them in greater depth on your own, because these are they take a lot of personal attention and intention. So you would just start either of these exercises that I'm going to describe by just identifying where you feel stuck. So you have inertia around. You know, the things that you feel are for your highest good, that you'd like to be doing. It's, you know, the sort of thing that excites you, like starting a new project or taking care of your body because you know how much better you would feel. So what is it that, you know, either you feel really stuck in life or you just have some really big inertia around doing something. And then you would ask yourself, if what you've identified is something you love and truly do feel a heartfelt passion for, or is it something you think you should do? Have you actually identified your heart's desire, or are you focusing on what you believe to be a middle step on the way to your goal? Like, what I mean by that is, if you really, really desire a different living situation, your heart's desire would be the new home, the place, the feeling, you know, all of it, the people living with you. That would be your heart's desire. But if you're focused on, okay, I need more money so I can have the home of my dreams, the more money would be the middle step. And that doesn't always get you to the end goal. You know, for example, I knew a woman who was very unhappily focused on the goal of making more money so she could ultimately pursue her passion of being an artist. And she just got nowhere with money or art until she just gave her attention fully to her art. Even though it didn't seem like the sensible thing to do, she just did. She devoted herself to her passion. And very quickly, you know, at first money just seemed to take care of itself. She'd get these little odd jobs that just came up very serendipitously. And the more she devoted herself to her art, before long, she received a grant to do her art in a very well-funded way. And she wouldn't have achieved this end nearly so efficiently, and maybe not at all, had she continued to make money her goal rather than being able to just do her art as her goal. So the next step in this process is to identify the hidden payoffs to staying stuck and what you'd have to do to stop needing them. And again, this takes you back to last week's lesson. It's all about that. And for example, the woman I described earlier who created the never-ending bout with the flu, she received the payoff of getting to stay at home without having to be honest with her husband about her true feelings. You know, for her to not need the payoff, or to not need the flu, you know, to get the payoff, she'd have to come clean. She'd have to acknowledge that, although she really wants to support her husband, she really does not want to do it by taking on work that's unfulfilling to her. She'd have to set a boundary there and just say, no, I'm not going to work with you anymore. And that was hard. That was out of her comfort zone, as we talked about last week. It's always, that step is always going to take us somewhere out of our comfort zone. So here's the point where the exercise goes in two different directions. So far it's the same for either direction, you know, identifying what's stuck, et cetera, et cetera. And as I talk about these two different exercises, I want to put a bit of a gender spin on them, because when painted with a very broad brush, men and women tend to lose passion in different ways. And of course, these kind of broad brush generalizations don't always fit individuals, so do adapt this to your own tendencies, you know, whatever gender you are. But, you know, there's some broad brush differences here where men tend to lose passion and sink into depression when they feel out of touch with their purpose. And being in touch with purpose means feeling useful and productive and needed, and having repeated experiences of being successful and being appreciated. Now, women, on the other hand, tend to fall into depression when they feel unsupported and when they feel overwhelmed by having to deal with, you know, all the burdens of life all alone. Therefore, to get back in touch with their joy and passion, women often need to feel less burdened by life and less alone, while men are more likely to need to experience their power to successfully meet a challenge. You got that? Like men, you know, to just get that lift, need to experience their power to be successful, to meet a challenge in some way, and to ideally be appreciated for it. Whereas women need to feel less alone. They need to feel like somebody is there with them. They need to feel less burdened by life. And the following exercises are designed with those differences in mind. So the first one I'm going to talk about is especially for men. Second one's especially for women. However, regardless of your gender, choose the exercise that you feel most passionate about doing, because this is the one that's going to work best for you. And you might even feel drawn to doing both of them. And like I said, you can do any or all of these exercises. Just really listen to what you want to do, to what feels right for you, and what you feel willing to do wholeheartedly. So here's the recovering purpose exercise for men. First off, you would make a list of things that you think would be beneficial to your highest good, but feel very challenging or feel kind of scary. So you'd make a list of as many things as you can think of, and you're going to put them in different categories, where in this list you'll have some things that are very small challenges or, you know, kind of low-level fears. You'd have one category that's medium-sized challenges or fears. And you'd have another category of very large, major life change type challenges or fears. And what I mean by this, for example, a low-level item might just be saying hello to strangers you meet during the day. Maybe you have a goal to be more connected to people. And yet maybe you're an introvert, and it's really out of your comfort zone to do something like that. So that might be a low-level item on your list of a low-level challenge/fear. Now, a medium-level item might be, say, you're just really worried about money. You know, just have a lot of fear about money. So tithing some money to a worthy cause might be an example of a medium-level fear. Or maybe training for a marathon might be on your list of medium-level challenges. Not that you should train for a marathon, but suppose that's been one of your things that you've always thought, wow, I'd really like to do that. That might be on your list somewhere. Now, a really big item might be to quit your job and start your own business, or just look for another more compatible work situation. Now, you're going to make a list with as many things as you can think of, keeping them in these 3 categories, having at least several things for each category, preferably more. And after you've made your list, what you're going to do is commit to doing between 3 and 6 things on your list of small and medium-sized challenges over the next month. You don't have to push yourself to do the big stuff. Simply identifying them and writing them down is a really powerful act. So you just need to commit to doing anywhere from 3 to 6 things on your list that fall into the small fear challenge or medium fear and challenge categories over the next month. And you choose things that you just want to do, the things you feel most excited about doing. And as you do them as a symbolic act, which means that as you do them, tell yourself that these courageous acts are rekindling your fire for life. And they're removing all the obstacles that stand in the way of you manifesting your heart's desire. So in other words, really dedicate the doing of these small challenges, maybe even the medium challenges, to disappearing all the obstacles to the really big dreams of life. And after you complete the 3 to 6 things, we'll continue down your list for as long as it feels exciting and joyful to do so. So that's exercise for men. Now here's the exercise for women. Women, what you would do is make a list of self-nurturing activities and include things you love to do that are really in alignment with your highest good rather than your addictions. You know, so these things might be taking a walk in the park, meeting a friend for lunch, leaving time every day to meditate or read, you know, for example, as opposed to sitting down in front of the TV and eating a whole bag of cookies. You know, things you know are good for you, but that are also enjoyable. You know, like maybe giving yourself a luxurious bath with candles and beautiful music and incense. You know, a lot of self-nurturing activities that are things you enjoy. They're not your shoulds. They're not, okay, I'm going to eat everything healthy, whether I like it or not. Make it things that really do leave you feeling pampered and good in a kind of clean, healthy way. And also include things that are related to other people, that might be reaching out to a friend and doing things with other people. So it's not all just you taking care of you by yourself. Include at least a peppering of things that involve others as well. And when you have a whole long list, get as many things on your list as you can think of, then make a commitment to doing at least one of these activities every day for a month. It doesn't have to be the same activity every day. Just picking one thing from your list every day. And make this exercise also a symbolic act, so that as you practice your nurturing activity, you affirm that this self-loving act is rekindling your passion for life, and it's making you more magnetic to your heart's desires. So again, I put genders on those 2 exercises. Again, listen to what really calls you, regardless of your gender. Now, for both of those 2 different exercises, if you start it and you fail to keep your commitment to these symbolic acts, really take this home as a message that there may be some reason that you're not ready to manifest your heart's desire, your desired outcome. And don't judge this as bad. Remember, no blame, no shame. Simply hold it as useful information. It might be that this outcome really isn't for your highest good, so you might need to revise your goal. Or it may be that there's very important payoffs to staying where you are that are still too necessary to release. Now, in case of the latter, you really are going to need to address the secondary gains before your subconscious self is going to let you move forward. So again, that goes back to last week's lesson. Really work that material till you can identify, well, what am I getting out of this? And what would I need to do to give myself the payoff without needing this stuck or unpleasant condition pushing me to it? Whoa, did you all hear that thunder? That must have been an exclamation point. All right, God. So this quarter in particular, we give a lot of attention to calling in our heart's desires. So it's really important to have some sense of what that is. And where I want to go now is with a meditation that really is all about just listening within and discerning what is our highest heart's desire at this time in our lives. So everybody just take a moment now to close your eyes and get comfortable in your seat. And just relax. And take a few deep, full breaths. And just let your body relax as you focus on your breathing. Breathing in a feeling of relaxation. Breathing out tension, tiredness, any discomfort in your body. And with each breath in, just feel your attention becoming more alert, more focused, more present. And with each out breath, release everything you don't need right now. And just let your awareness turn inward and come to rest at your heart. And as you give attention to that area around your physical heart, picture there a beautiful light source. And just imagine it as a beautiful inner spark, a magical fire that never burns out. It's always there, supplying you with endless energy and passion for life and joy and wonder and innocence and fresh perspective. And no matter how far away you may at times feel from this inner light, know that it's always there. It always has been, always will be. And so just honor it now with your attention, and you can just see it just flashing brighter with joy. And as you look into this light, give attention now to your deepest heart's desires. And as you look inside, really find what it is that you want passionately. And some of us have had so many experiences in life of not getting what we want that we've trained ourselves not to want, not to desire. So you might need to do some digging here to really uncover that spark within you that still does desire from life. It's a childlike part. Remember the kid part of you, how it was when you were a kid. You just wanted stuff so badly. That's not a bad thing. Sometimes as we grow up, we just tell ourselves, oh, we shouldn't want, we should detach from our wants, or it's selfish to want. But there really is an energy and vitality to desire that we don't want to squelch. It leads us to important places. And feel this spark to be your creative power. It really is very connected to your capacity for joy. And as you let this spark just continue to grow within you, just look into the flame. Ask yourself, what is your highest good most want for you now? What does your heart want from life? And that's not the same as a little kid, who wants to go in the candy store and eat it all. That's more our place of addiction. It's trying to fill a void. Your heart wants what's going to truly bring happiness and joy, lasting joy. And as you ask yourself the question, what is it that my heart is calling for? Let go of whatever it is you think you want, all the things you believe you should want, maybe because they seem sensible. All the things other people tell you that you should want, even the things you used to want. Let go of all your preconceptions about what you want. And just go to the wisest part of yourself for the answer. Find your fire, your passion, and let it tell you. Let it guide you. Now, if something specific and concrete comes to mind, maybe you want a new job or the perfect home or a relationship, or perhaps healing from a physical illness, just picture this as vividly as you can. Make it very real in your mind's eye. Imagine what it feels like to have it already. And then go beyond the picture, the specifics, to discover what it is you want to feel or experience as a result of having or doing or being this specific outcome. How do you want to feel? If it's the new home you want, how do you want to feel in that home? If it's a new relationship you're calling in, how do you want to feel in this partnership? If it's physical health, how do you want to feel as a result of having health? Now, it's all right if you don't have an external goal in mind, or if you're not in touch with the specifics, because if this is the case, you can just go right into the feeling of what you want, of how you want to feel in life. And ask yourself, what would it be like to experience more joy in your life? More love, more power, more creativity, more security, more safety, more freedom, or more of whatever it is you just don't seem to get enough of. What would that feel like? What would it be like to wake up in the morning excited about the day to come and to enjoy all the activities of daily life? What would it be like to love and be loved as you've always wanted to be, maybe in a way you've never thought possible? What would it be like to go to sleep at night, feeling grateful and blessed and at peace, looking forward to the next day? And just create within yourself now the inner experience of having a life filled with joy and reward. Letting this become so vivid that your whole body is vibrating with the experience of fulfillment And in truth, this feeling of joy it's always there. It's always there within you. It doesn't really need an external event to call it forth. So just take another moment to let this inner state of joy just get bigger and stronger. Let it wash through you, because this is creating powerful memories of fulfillment in your body. This is creating the cellular memory of joy and fulfillment. And that vibration is already starting to attract circumstances that are best going to keep the fires of joy alive. So just take a moment with that. Fill yourself up with this wonderful experience of already having the joyful life, the life of fulfillment and reward. Let it become so vivid, so real, that your body believes it. Your mind doesn't need to believe it. Just feel it in your body. Notice how your body relaxes. Notice how the energy just flows, maybe rises to the surface, bubbles up. Notice where in your body in particular that whole experience of joy and fulfillment, of safety and peace, where it just seems to center in your body, what it feels like in your gut and in your heart, on your shoulders, in your face, through your limbs. Just notice what it feels like as your body believes in joy. Because this is a vibration that's already sending an impulse out to the world. It's calling in something new. So just enjoy that. And then as you're ready, just take a deep breath. Open your eyes again. And unmuted everybody now. And I'm just going to open it up for anyone who has anything you'd like to share or questions about the exercises, anything at all.
Lynn, hey, it's Brenda.
Hey, Brenda.
Hey, you can hear me, yay.
Yeah.
This was a very interesting place for me to be in for this exercise, because I already feel so much like this tour, the past 2 weeks have been living my heart's desire. And so coming into this with a feeling of joy already, and oh, this is it. And I've noticed the last few days, usually if I leave town for a while, things at the office go berserk. The computers crash, I come back home and, it's like, okay, what's wrong? And this time, everything just conspired to be supportive. My husband said, the weather's good, but don't rush. Everything's fine. Take some extra time getting home. Don't rush. I'll enjoy the ride back, And everything at the office, I checked in at the office, they're like, oh, it's fine. Take your time. Everything was just so positive. And so now I'm wondering, listening to this exercise, like, oh, gee, maybe there is really something to this vibrational attraction, stuff going on. Of course, I'm saying that the server could crash in a moment, but But and I mean, and yesterday, I got home. One thing that always makes me happy is to see my kids, my adult children. And I see my daughter pretty frequently, but our son is a little bit older and he's, doing his own thing. I just unpacked the car and he drove up for a surprise visit. So it's like, oh, wow, the day just got even better. The week just got even better. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, that it's going to be an experiment for me to keep this. I'm in a different place right now for working the exercises. And, I know it's not always going to be the mountaintop experience. I know that. But it will certainly be interesting to see how, this plays out at this point in the cycle.
Yeah, something I'm just feeling for you is that, and this is true of any growth process, when we have a real high, like you said, it's hard to stay on the mountaintop.
Oh yeah, I know I'm not going to stay there. I just don't want to, the crash and burn.
and sometimes when we have big highs, that does bring to the surface any part of us that says, I don't deserve this. So I would if anything comes up that feels like it, it's really harshing your buzz, raining on your parade, really embrace it as great. I've just really raised my vibration, and now I'm getting to see a reflection of the little bits and pieces that are still in the way.
Oh, yay. That makes it.
Enjoy the process.
Okay.
Don't feel like you have to stay at the top of the mountain. Be really happy.
Right.
If you do, and also be really happy if you're shown that, something that's been lurking in the darkness that you're ready now to just shed, because you have refined your energy to the degree that you can do that now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, very much. And it helps to reframe some things, and I guess it's kind of preparation in a sense. I'm not sitting here going, oh boy, when's the other shoe going to fall? But because I don't want to invite anything. But I also know, there are peaks and valleys, and that's just life. And I'm fine. Okay, I'm in the valley now, but not now, but generally speaking, okay, this was. Here's a valley, yeah. But just to have that knowledge that, oh good, it's I'm cleaning out dust bunnies, or whatever, getting rid of those yucky little crusties, scraping the gras doux off the pan.
Yeah, and another part that just speaks more to the creative process is you have just completed a creative work. This has been your dream. You've manifested it. You did it. It was great. You're celebrating it. And now you're home.
Yeah.
And, at the end of any creative project comes a need to just be in the void again so that you can get re-inspired.
Yes.
So, just allow some of that, too. I would just really enjoy spring. Without a whole lot of agenda or like I have to know what's next or any of that sort of thing, to just really allow yourself to just be in the moment. Because what comes next is to be re-inspired for something even more lovely and wonderful, bigger, better.
Yeah.
So I would give some attention to that, because we are going into manifesting season. Just let yourself just be in the moment, let go of agendas, just open to let your heart tell you what's next. What's next for Brenda.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
And thank you for just speaking up, because I think what we're talking about now is something that's really important for everybody to understand about how a growth process happens. Because, very often we will have, especially when we're working with miracle consciousness, we can have these great peaks and manifest these great miracles and serendipities and just be in a high of our own consciousness. And then we don't stay there. So that we were there stops feeling real. But the reality is that once we've touched that point, we always have it, and we will touch back into it. And a growth process isn't so much a higher, 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 steadily rising line. It's more of a, you go to a high, and then eventually you're just going to go to the same lows you've always gone to, but you're not going to stay there for as long. Your time in the valley, as you put it, it's going to be a much shorter time. It's going to be much less painful, and you will rise again to peaks. And the overall plateau stage is going to sort of even out at a higher level than before. Just your normal is going to raise to a higher level.
Yes.
And that's much more what a growth process looks like than a steadily rising line.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be disconcerting because you think, oh my gosh, I had that high, and now I'm just in that same old low place again. And so what's the good of being in that high? Is it real? And how we define it has a lot to do with where we go from there.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for bringing all that up. Does anybody else have anything you'd like to share or ask before we call it a night? Well, if not, then I really want to wish all of you a lovely rise this Sunday. This Sunday is Easter, and I always think of Easter as being such an incredible commemoration of transformation. Whether you're a Christian and you think of the S-O-N rising, or just prefer to think of it as the S-U-N on the rise. It really is a time of just celebrating, I think, that place of inner light that can transform all things. So have just a lovely sunrise this weekend, and you will be in my mind, in my prayers, my heart this week. I love you all, and just have a great week until we see each other again next Wednesday. Till then, namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste. Good night, y'all.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night, Lynn. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.